Okay. No drawing. No guidelines. No parachute. No safety net. Let's just paint. A tree trunk. Let's put a tree trunk in right here. Kind of the main one. I just used a bit of alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue. Some shots of white. Now I'm adding a little bit of burnt sienna here and there. Okay, now back to our alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue. Shadow on the backside. While we're at it, I think I'd like to put another less important trunk right about there. That one can be mostly in the shadow. Excuse me. Excuse me. Okay, now let's get a little stronger. Not really strong, but a little bit stronger. Yes, it looks really strong because we're against a dark background, but I'm just okay, so we know there's light catching here. Our light's going to come from the upper right, I guess. Kind of looks that way, eh? Okay, these are pretty close. Let's put something far away as well. Maybe there'll be a trunk showing up back there somewhere. Not a very important one. Let's be careful not to make these things too straight. Why just have one? Why don't we put two trunks there? indication of a trunk here as well. Kind of watching my spacing. You know, I don't want a trunk and a trunk and a trunk and a trunk. We're having a group of two or a couple, or, you know, and then maybe a cluster of three. Maybe the odd lone one. We'll see. We'll see. I'm just messing around. Okay. Here, let's say that one took a bit of a turn. All right, seeing that, I think I have a feeling I'm going to want to bring this trunk even more forward, or more forward, higher. This one as well. This one as well. And there is a bit of a guideline out there that says, in general, you don't want more than 2/3 of a tree trunk running across your painting. You need to break it up. Or rather, you don't want a tree trunk, running more than 2/3 of the way across your painting. So, you know, it's probably in there. It's probably, if you add this and this together, we're probably pretty close to only half. That's something I bear in the back of my mind when I'm composing these tree scenes. But it's quite far in the back of my mind because, excuse me, I prefer to just use my sort of intuition a little bit and use my eye as far as these things are concerned. What if we were to foreground. What if we were to have a? I'm going to paint this in quite dark. That could be bush. Okay, I had a thought and then I dismissed it. I was going to put, and I may still put, maybe a couple of evergreens, you know, babies, in the foreground, rising up off to the edge here. But we're going to hold off. We're going to keep that thought, but we're going to hold off on execution. A stay of execution. I think what I'll do is put in a little bit of color back here for the moment. Guess I'm going to need a little more paint on my easel here. I don't just want a mass of color. I would like to break it up. So this is a bit of alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, yellow ochre, and white. These few strokes. And yeah, now we're going to go to just cobalt blue and alizarin crimson and white. Still in the purples, but a little more mauvey. Well, it sounds like the military's finally coming for me. I don't know if you can hear the helicopter in the background, but... Okay, just a bit of that stuff, not a whole pile. Let's add some yellow ochre to it. Warm it up a bit. Variety. Variety, variety. Okay, I need to get a little more alizarin and crimson on my palette here. All right. Oops. A few shots of some greenish stuff here. Bit of yellow ochre, bit of ultramarine blue. That'll help to keep the purple that it is close to. It'll help to keep that purple showing, keep it vibrant. Okay, a little more. This time we'll add a hint of red sienna to it. Again, I'd like each stroke to have a little bit of variety of color in it. Let's keep this thing alive. I think we're going to go for an autumn scene here. Just looking into some bush. Yeah. Okay. Now before we go further down this road, I'm just going to wipe off my scrape and wipe off my little mixing area here. I have decided that the important part of this painting is going to be in here. Bordered by this, brought over to a little bit past center. This will be the most interesting area, I'm thinking. What I'd like to do is take some burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. And I think I'd like to have some sort of an old, beat up, worn out, half rotten bit of trunk sitting there. Okay. Excuse me. And coming out of that, let's go with some fairly red ground cover. What I'm using right now is yellow ochre. and alizarin crimson. I'm going to be introducing cadmiums into this area. Cadmium yellow, cad red medium, that sort of thing. But I'm not doing it yet. I don't even have it on my palette yet. I don't need it yet. Actually, I just said I don't need it yet, but actually that moment of yet has arrived. I would like to put some intensity in. I could hold off, but I think in a way, for the sake of the video, so it looks like we're actually getting somewhere, I'll throw a few strokes of higher chroma in here. Cad Yellow Deep. This is an old tube made by Talons. And I can tell you, I like the intensity of this stuff. So it's a little bit of this Cad Yellow Deep. I'm mixing a little bit into the yellow ochre, alizarin Criz stuff that I've got there. That's nice. It'll set that tree and this bit of a stump here off pretty effectively, I think. Now just a bit of that deep stuff and some white. Okay. Okay, now let's run away from our. Well, okay, just still a touch of it in there, but I don't want much. I just really don't want too much. Back to our yellow ochre and alizarin crimson mixture. Put a bit of that there. Folding back on itself slightly. Just a bit. Okay. Gonna thin that off a little bit. It's a bit of a nuisance. This the good quality stuff that I'm using, this Cad Yellow Deep, is the viscosity of paste. Heavy paste, heavier than toothpaste. And I'm trying to apply it over some cheaper, more oily, wimpier stuff. That's kind of difficult. And in cases like that, sometimes I'll just leave it, let it dry, revisit it, lay on the lighter stuff later. Lay on the lighter stuff later. Betty bought a bit of butter. Bit of butter Betty bought was bitter, so Betty bought a bit more butter to make the bitter butter better. An old friend of mine taught me that little ditty. That was, you know, he ended up owning an auction in Camrose, Alberta. Almost impossible to have a normal conversation with the guy, because he just kept falling into this cadence and the speed. Couldn't keep up. Anyway, I think he might be a subscriber still to this channel. I think he is. Hi Dave, if you're hearing this. Sorry about butchering that little exercise. He had several exercises that he had to practice when he was doing his thing. But the Betty bought a bit of butter one kind of stuck with me. And now I live by that mantra. Whatever that means. Okay. I think we're coming along well here. I think we're coming along okay. That's pretty strong. Maybe I'll add a little more alizarin to that. All right, we're starting to get a feel for it. Some drama's poking in here now. Let's go. No, let's continue this a little bit. Yeah, let's do that. Let's put a bit of a dish in here. All right. That's a very red start. Gonna need to put a bit of green in here to help the red pop, I think. Well, we don't need to, but I think I'd like to. Yeah, maybe what I'll do is establish our foreground line here. Because even though there isn't a great deal of perspective in this painting, you're not looking way into it, you still need a plane, you know, you need a plane back here. And then one that comes closer, but lies behind this. And then there's this plane, which lies behind this trunk and behind this foreground. Then we have the foreground. You still have to have a little bit of a perspective-ish feel to things. Not that this is going to have to remain a dark line, but for the time being, it's a good reference for me. Yeah. No, I think we'll just go up. I'm not even going to put much of a line up here because I want this to be a harsh difference between here and here. I want this to be a more gradual difference between here and here. Methinks so far that that's how I would like it. Okay, let's give the mixing area a bit of a wipe again. Clean it off. Okay, where's my... I'd like some cad yellow pale to play with as well. I'm not going to use cad red medium yet. I'm going to reserve that for later in the painting. That's going to be part of, I'll probably use the cad red medium for maybe some more highlights. Might even use a little bit of quinacridone magenta for some highlights, but again, not yet. Not just yet. I will, however, put a few stronger strokes in here. I know it looks like it, again, because we're in a dark background, working against a dark background, but this still is not playing all my cards regarding chroma and value. You know, I still might have this trunk catch more light. That means I'll really bring the value up. But I said I might. Doesn't mean I'm going to. It's not a decision I'm willing to make just yet. More cad yellow medium. I think we can still afford to run this up a little bit. And I think we can afford to bring it down here a little bit as well. soften some of these lines. Not too soft, just a little. Okay, cad yellow medium, burnt sienna. Alright, cad yellow medium, burnt sienna, hint of ultramarine blue, more than a hint actually. And we're adding some white to this as well. Sort of warm, pale green. I don't want a mass of this color here. I just want it showing up here and there. This is kind of a color that reminds me of the color of the walls of a mental hospital that my dad used to work at years ago. And I have to say it quite honestly, I'm not that fond of it. That was back when they used to think that, you know, that color of green would keep patients calm, subdued, serene, all that sort of thing. Okay. Cad yellow medium, yellow ochre. We're going to be, I kind of need to establish, I think, my, let me add a little bit of burnt sienna to that. I'd like to establish a bit of a pattern. A very loose one. You know, something sort of round, tumbling down, bulbous in the foreground, to a degree. Probably going to have some foliage starting on these trunks here. That's going to be darker green again, painted in, and then I'll lay a bit of light over top of them. That'll help to frame this top corner, so it doesn't get sort of, so we don't, our eye doesn't sort of run off the palette or off the canvas too easily. So I'll have all this dark and light drama here, our impact, our intensity of color here. Everything's just going to fade a little bit onto the right, on the right hand side as we head off the painting. Going to lose its values, going to lose its high chroma. Going to lose its importance, because as we go off the painting, we don't want it there. You can't, I don't want this strength here and the same over here to quote unquote balance it, because that would be hyper balancing it, and then it would be, well, what's that word again? Well, it'd be some pretty poor juxtaposition, that's for sure. But that would be too, a little too symmetrical. We don't want symmetry, we want asymmetry. Symmetry, asymmetry, but still balance. How about that? We're going to get away with saying that? I think so. How about a couple of shots of Something a little pinker. Just a few, just a little bit. Just some, just some alizarin crimson and a bit of white. Sometimes that can add almost a floral note to things, but I don't mind. Okay, maybe we will cap it at that for the moment. I'll play by myself in the sandbox for a while, and then the next time we see each other, there will be a little more done. Oh, here, let me just... Let me just get a little bit further here. Let's get that tree trunk standing out as well, that skinny one. Oh, a little stand up and back up and see how it's looking. Yeah, we're heading in the right direction. I like the colors on that. Let me just square the camera off briefly. And turn off my gas stove here because I'm cooking. The day is warming up nicely. Okay. A clickety click of the camera. And a little zoom in so you can see some of the controlled sloppiness. I enjoy how that glow comes from behind this little ridge of soil in front of us. That makes things pop. Oop. Let me just take you up this trunk. Climb that tree. Okay guys, I think we'll just be happy with that for the moment. I'll keep playing, and we'll talk to you soon.